the scourge of the Russian internet, who built her career on informing and fawning over Putin's dignity.
Our king does not believe in denunciations, in informing, in informing, in informing.
She was so diligent in doing this that she even rose to the status of one of the secret lovers of the vile little Putin.
Vladimir Putin has found a new love in the person of a historian educated in London who now wants to introduce censorship on the Russian internet.
A hereditary servant to the dictator's whims. A worthy daughter of her mother, one of the most unscrupulous representatives of the Russian State Duma, who was clearly inspired by Orwell's dystopia.
A prohibition as a legal norm from which a law is constructed, and the word itself must be very precise in what it forbids. That is the greatest freedom a person can have. What the hell are you even talking about?
The guardian of Putin's values, Russian culture, and other Kremlin absurdities, who sometimes forgets herself and dances to the songs of the most famous gender-diverse people from the enemy side. An obedient and submissive media lackey of a Putin oligarch working off the pimp's money, who previously paid for the services of the terrorist Strelkov-Gherkin. And finally, the devoted wife, idol of all the Z supporters, and the Putinist singer Yaroslav Dronov, known as Shaman.
A little fir tree was born. Damn it, it was truly born, standing quietly in the forest. In both winter and summer, it remained slender and green, always vibrant, just like that.
Let me introduce you. Director of the Safe Internet League, Yekaterina Mizulina. A puppet who, in a very short time, managed to bring to their knees and turn into the same obedient dolls hundreds of people who were once respected. It's a real mystery. How did a woman who is, in fact, quite unremarkable, not the most talented or gifted, manage to become a true terror and sow panic and fear among Russians simply by taking advantage of a favorable situation and not even that much power?
How exactly?
How did this fragile blonde manage to turn into a skirt-wearing Ramzan Kadyrov, before whom once-respected people are forced to humiliate themselves and beg for forgiveness? People who were once respected and revered.
On your knees, worm.
Yekaterina was born in 1984 in Yaroslavl. Her father, Mikhail, was the head of the ideological sector of the Regional Committee of the Communist Party. Her mother, Elena, was a history teacher and head of a department at the Pedagogical Institute. Both of them skillfully pretended to be ardent members of the Communist Party for a long time and used communist ideology solely for their own benefit. To climb the career ladder.
Because working together, in fact, for my benefit, brings people together.
On the eve of the collapse of the USSR in 1991, both of them hastily abandoned the sinking ship and quickly reinvented themselves as Democrats. In general, opportunism, rapid change of allegiance, and a thirst for power are the main credo of the Mizulina family.
And I'm ready.
Already in '93, Yekaterina's mother began her political career and sets out to conquer Moscow. She changes political parties as easily as changing gloves without a second thought. First, she is elected to the Federation Council from the Choice of Russia bloc, then joins Yabloko, and just a year later switches to the Union of Right Forces.
My dear, betraying at the right time isn't betrayal, it's foresight.
But the situation in the country changes rapidly, democracy and liberal values fall out of favor, and Elena moves over to the A Just Russia party. The very same party run by the well-known turtle enthusiast Alexei Zhuravlyov.
The circus has opened its doors to zoophiles. Can you imagine, in Denmark, there is an official place for zoophiles. You can just go there. I don't know, rape a turtle or something?
While climbing to the top of the Moscow Olympus, Elena, as befits a typical Russian politician patriot, sends her daughter Yekaterina to study. No, not to her native Yaroslavl or even Moscow, but to the very lair of the Anglo-Saxons, London.
Welcome to
The USA. What freaks?
In the capital of Great Britain, the future informant, censor, and moral compass of the Russian internet graduated from the School of Oriental and African Studies. After returning to her homeland, Katya enrolled at the Institute of Asian and African Studies at Moscow State University, and during her studies she even managed to work as a Chinese language interpreter for the Russian delegation at the Olympic Games in Beijing. I
Almost stayed in China. Why didn't you stay?
Well, I had to go back and finish my studies.
Meanwhile, Mizulina's mother wasn't wasting any time. Elena quickly came up with her own formula for longevity in Russian politics. Please the Tsar, flatter him, obey his wishes without question, and you'll definitely get your share of the state pie.
In Russia, it's actually much safer to steal train cars than a bicycle, in fact.
After becoming the State Duma's representative in the Constitutional Court, it was Mizulina Sr. who defended the unconstitutional initiative of the Russian Führer to abolish direct gubernatorial elections in Russia. In this way, she played a significant role in depriving citizens of their first freedoms.
You need freedom.
Me? Oh no, why would I?
Over time, Elena Mizulina would become one of the most zealous guardians of Putin's traditional values. It was she who advocated for the abortion ban, and she voted for the so-called Dima Yakovlev law, which prohibited Americans from adopting Russian orphans. It was none other than Elena who proposed introducing a divorce tax, and in 2012, believe it or not, it was Elena Mizulina who authored the bill on internet censorship. What a symbolic continuity between generations. In
the early 2010s, Mizulina Sr. became known for a series of repressive laws.
In 2012, her law on creating a registry of banned websites literally gave Roskomnadzor free rein.
In 2013, her law on insulting the feelings of believers introduced criminal liability for violators.
Up to 3 years of imprisonment.
the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But that the daughter's moral downfall would be so close as well is actually surprising. The influence and example of her mother clearly helped Yekaterina become that very universally hated, unscrupulous oppressor of freedoms. And she proudly spreads the principles of discrimination, intolerance, and homophobia among the masses, principles that have literally become the family motto on the Mizulina dynasty's coat of arms.
I'm a terrible person.
Yeah?
A tyrant and a despot, devious and capricious.
To start with, Elena will place her daughter Yekaterina under the cozy wing of Russia's most orthodox-leaning oligarch, Konstantin Malofeev. The billionaire is a co-owner of Rostelecom, deputy head of the World Russian People's Council under the Russian Orthodox Church, founder of the Tsargrad TV channel, as well as the main sponsor and financier of Russian terrorists who started the war against Ukraine in Crimea and Donbass. For example, people like Strelkov-Gherkin.
Of course, behind the backs of the Crimean self-defense forces stood our military personnel. In
2015, Katya started working at the Malofeev Foundation of St. Basil the Great. 2 years later, she started to feel constrained there, and Mizulina, inspired by her mother's activities, headed her own mini version of Roskomnadzor, the League for a Safe Internet. There, she took on the task of censoring and cleaning up the Russian internet. The sponsor of this organization of informers with repressive tendencies was, once again, Malofeev.
His credentials are not in fact built on merit, but rather, as a matter of fact, they are based on his frequent denunciations.
With several loud attacks against popular artists, Yekaterina had already made a name for herself even before the full-scale invasion. In 2021, the future scourge of the Russian internet filed reports with the prosecutor's office accusing rappers LJ and Morgenstern of drug propaganda.
Ladies and gentlemen, understand this. Mizulina is a nobody. She's not even a deputy. She's not a government official. She's nobody. She's just a person who gathered some team and writes denunciations. She is nobody.
Besides snitching and trying to ban everything and everyone, the daughter learned another crucial skill from her mother. Want to climb higher up the food chain and win the favor of the powerful in this swampy world? Humiliate and attack their opponents. And also, bow and grovel as low as possible before... True recognition came to Mizulina Jr. already in 2022. Sensing the smell of blood, Katyusha began churning out denunciations literally, on an industrial scale. The war opened up horizons for her that she had never seen before. After all, now her skill in writing denunciations coincided with the authorities' pathological desire to punish dissenters. And public floggings of those who had fallen out of favor with the Kremlin elders became more in demand than ever before.
Official informers have already joined in the harassment of artists and the Mutabor Club. The head of the Safe Internet League, Yekaterina Mizulina, wrote on her Telegram channel, "The following is clear. Holding such events at a time when our guys are dying in the special military operation and many children are losing their fathers is cynical. Our fighters on the front lines are definitely not fighting for this. Such parties are a shot in the foot for the entire policy pursued by the state."
And it doesn't matter what your previous status was, even the Pop King, as he used to consider himself, is now forced to cowardly and humiliatingly turn into the King of Pop.
Making excuses isn't very manly. So I'll answer everyone at once. There are moments in every person's life when you walk through the wrong door.
All disloyal citizens, those with a different point of view, or simply frivolous men and women of the Kingdom of Crooked Mirrors, found themselves in the crosshairs of the rampaging Commissar. It was as if the great Inquisitor Torquemada had possessed Yekaterina. She began to mercilessly root out all dissenters and those who disagreed. And she declared a real witch hunt. Even if the targets were completely ridiculous and harmless. Well, and
another half-naked scandal in Russia. The investigative committee is now investigating Russian singer Olga Buzova over her scandalous performance in Ufa. It all started with a complaint from outraged members of the public, as is now common in the Russian Federation, who didn't like the singer's outfit, this one, which she wore at the Wikifest event on June 1st. This outfit seemed unacceptable, for example, to the head of the Safe Internet League, that same informant, Yekaterina Mizulina. She called it too revealing and described Buzova's performance itself as a provocation.
Moreover, in her zealous outrage, Mizulina and her league tried to attack anyone, even Wikipedia. In April 2022, Katya filed a complaint against the internet service with the Prosecutor General's office and Roskomnadzor. The passionate fighter against freedom of speech asked to have Wikipedia checked for lies and fakes. And the Russian authorities responded. They demanded that the online encyclopedia remove several articles, including those about the battle for Kyiv, the Bucha massacre, and the destruction of the Mariupol Drama Theater. The Kremlin and Mizulina really didn't like the truth on the pages of a resource free from censorship. Despite all of Mizulina's threats, God forgive me, I'll quote her, to smash Wikipedia and Google just like the Nazis and the botanists, in this confrontation, Yekaterina suffered a fiasco. And so, having failed miserably, the Inquisitor returned to dealing with simpler opponents.
This activity before justice catches up with you.
Yes, for now it is considered censorship, but it is not banned in Taishtiflips or in the Russian Federation. Where do you see censorship?
Affirming oneself at the expense of the weak and defenseless. How disgusting, yet how typical of Mizulina.
And the conscript, it seemed, was completely useless.
A young man who had the audacity to dare, in front of our audience, to openly and publicly insult the soldiers. Conscripts? He'd better apologize for that now, before he's held accountable for discrediting them.
But those who have fallen out of favor with Yekaterina include the journalist-interviewer Yuri Dud and the self-confident, self-absorbed pro-Putin designer Artemy Lebedev.
But you meant Mizulina. How do you feel about her specifically? Very negatively. Because I believe her activities are harmful to Russia.
It turned out to be much more pleasant to intimidate Russians and local showbiz stars than to fight against independent media. In
general, it might have seemed that I was insulting Yekaterina. At this point, I would like to apologize because that's absolutely not what I intended to do.
According to journalists' calculations, during the full-scale war, Mizulina has filed more than 300 reports against public figures. This includes 238 against bloggers, 74 against musicians, and 5 against comedians.
I consider it my duty to report them.
It doesn't take long to come up with a complaint.
Even Ramzan Kadyrov could envy Yekaterina Mizulina's achievements. In Russia, a mass pilgrimage of celebrities has begun, heading straight to pay homage to the Kremlin Barbie. Of course, there's no talk of any morality when it comes to this immoral person. The true goal behind all of Mizulina Jr.'s hypocritical activities is a thirst for profit and power. And here's an important nuance. Since Yekaterina is not yet a politician, she doesn't even have to make her income declaration public. And it can be said with certainty that informing on unfortunate, cowardly, but quite wealthy celebrities brings in huge profits.
This is big money and a lot of trust from the youth.
Just the snitch outfits alone are worth hundreds of millions of rubles. All the favorite brands that claim to defend the Russian internet actually come from French, British, and Italian luxury labels. And if you add in the luxurious high-end jewelry, a 210 square meter apartment in the center of Moscow in an elite residential complex with an estimated value of over 200 million rubles, it becomes clear what kind of morality and principles this hypocrite is so diligently working for.
For example, a diamond watch for 3 million, earrings for almost 4 million, and a ring from the same brand for nearly 3 million. A bracelet for 1.5 million, and a necklace for 500,000.
Who knows? Maybe Katko was also rewarded with diamonds and luxury clothing by the oligarch Malofeev. But the apartment and the Breguet watch worth 11 million rubles were given to her by none other than the bunkered Tsar himself.
Russian insiders claim that Yekaterina Mizulina has an appearance that especially attracts Vladimir Putin. At a meeting with students this month, she demanded and received an apology from a student who questioned the necessity of mandatory military service. It is reported that she threatened him with Putin's draconian laws on discrediting the Russian army.
The British press is convinced. Putin is very fond of Katyusha's vile attacks on internet freedoms. So much so that at a certain point it became a fetish, and she became his favorite wife.
The master appointed me.
However, the infatuation didn't last long. Very soon, the balding Alpha Pina lost interest in the tattletale. After all, despite all her flexibility, Mizulina can't quite compete with Kabaeva in that department. And so Katya was faced with the question of finding a new patron. But as she approaches 40, it's becoming increasingly difficult for Mizulina to find a worthy candidate. And so, never having been married, Yekaterina settled for a simpler suitor and began looking for one among Putin's staff, people just like herself.
We're a couple, we're dating, and we're together as a couple.
Well then, it seems that the informant, who paved her way to success at the cost of repression and the humiliation of fallen stars, is starting a new chapter in her life, and is retraining as a politician. Her newly minted husband, Yaroslav Dronov, with the ease of a shaman summoning rain, simply went and gifted Yekaterina a political party. But what's so strange about that? This is Russia, after all.
I am giving you a wonderful party, and our special party will be called We, a name that truly represents all of us together.
In early November, the disgusting couple ostentatiously and pretentiously got married in occupied Donetsk.
Voluntary and sincere.
Please step over to the grooms. Please return to your place.
For their wedding, the warmongers chose military-style outfits and invited the local Gauleiter, Pinis Dushilin, to the ceremony. The only ones missing from this wedding in Malinovka were Katyusha's sugar daddy with his little suitcase and Father Gundyaev with his golden censer.
What kind of priest do they have?
They have one.
Bring him here. Impossible.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.